on a microphone stand in front of the mic, so it's like this, so it kind of curves out this way, and the bowl's like a centimeter away from the microphone, because that was the way they did Japan, and they wanted us to repeat the same process rather than do it all at the post and like add bowl sound. You know, they wanted us to do it organically in the booth. So that would be how I could get him to hold his head right in the right spot. Because if I left it to him to stand, he would do this, or this, or I'll do it over here. Or like, nope, stay right here. At some point, he figured out that the stool, there was just enough room to like kick back in it. And so what he would try to do is, we do a 3-beep lead in, and where the 4th beep would be, that's where you start recording. So it's boop, 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 act. And we preview it every time like that. So what he would start doing is when it would be preview time, he'd kick the chair back, and then wait for boop, boop. Now I'm hearing him in spot. So like, you know, made a little game out of it. He tried to be in place right at the last moment. At some point he did that. I'm like, cool, Aaron, we're going to do a preview. Okay. And I could tell, you know, because you could tell the difference between okay and okay. You can hear that I'm way back here, right? I'm like, you're not fooling anyone, you little jerk. I know you're screwing around the booth again. So he was leaning back in the booth, and it came time to record, and normally it's boop, 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 you know, the performance. And it was boop, 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 nothing. And so I waited, because sometimes he just comes in late, like he's like, and you know, I can still catch the same audio file and move it around, whatever, but he didn't say anything. So I was like, Aaron? Aaron? And I hear this, help! I'm like, way somewhere back in the booth. Like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm stuck! So I open the door, and normally, let's say this is like where everything normally would be, the microphone's here and his chair's here. The chair is flipped over like this, and his legs are like up on the wall, and he's trying to avoid hitting anything mechanical and electronic that he would have to purchase. And he had slumped himself over to where he was looking straight up. That's the Aaron story. I'm sure he tells it with more bravado because it happened to him. Yes?
Kyle said he didn't get his start with like acting and theater. How did you get your start in the performing arts?
I did. Let's see. I was in an accelerated program for the gifted and talented when I was in elementary school, middle school, and part of high school. About 10th grade, I decided, and it's not a good idea, guys, but this is what I did. I decided that I wanted to be lazy and be in regular classes and just make A's, rather than try really hard in accelerated classes and make B's. So like, I'm going to sleep through high school and still do okay. It's a terrible idea, don't do it. But through that, I did some artistic type training. I took music classes, and I took theater. And I took theater in college as well. I'd started down a path of just being a musician. I really wanted to be a rock star. But at the time that I went to college, they didn't have Rock Star Academy. I went through the music program, and while I was in that, I met a lot of friends who were in the music program, but they were also performers. And, you know, theatrical performers, and not just musical performers. And I started hanging around with them. I was like, man, I miss this. This is a lot of fun. And the more I worked with it, the more I realized that this is probably a better goal for me as far as a pursuit versus music, because my history in music would be, I would get a band together and we would start playing, and musicians would flake out and, you know, eventually quit or not show up or whatever. Musicians are the only group of artists that are even flakier than actors. Actors are flaky too, but musicians are worse. And I say that being both, so I'm talking about myself. Yeah, I had a background in doing that, and I kind of, you know, rekindled that interest when I was in college, and took, instead of the normal 4 years it would take to finish college, it took me like 7 or 8, because I started, you know, my interest in acting rekindled, and then therefore I was like, well, I want to do this before I get out of school, and so it's like acting 1, and I just started taking all the classes over again, and you know, had a nice 7 or 8 year run of being in college, which I was like, I'm going to finish, Mom and Dad, I swear. I just want all of this stuff so I don't ever have to go back. But yes, come from a background of studying it. So, who's got a question? Yes. Yeah. I'm an adaptive scriptwriter, so I write a lot of the English adaptations for anime. It's different than being like a, dramatic television scriptwriter or even a film scriptwriter, because you're not creating everything from the ground up, you're adapting. So my job would be twofold. I have to do the technical end of the job, which is go through and time code everything and write down each thing that everyone's doing. So the time code would be I have to break things down into 1/30th of a second or so for each little movement that's on screen down to the frame of like, okay, there's where Luffy opens his mouth as he's getting ready to punch someone. Or here is an off-screen line that I kind of have to do my best judgment of where it starts at, or use the Japanese audio to figure out where it starts at, notate that, so when we go back through and record it, we have all the exact correct spots to start recording from. That's the first part. The second part is I have to take what is in the translation and what I see on screen and adapt that as closely as possible so that it means either the exact same thing or as close to the same thing within the restraints of the animation that's already on screen. Because we're not going to paint over it and reanimate it, because then it's not uncut anymore and nobody wants that. I don't want that either. So it's our job to make those mouth movements and what we say that comes out of them sound natural and not like, a William Shatner broken up line. I think I'm going to go save you, like we don't want it to sound like that. So it's our job to like, no, well, you could say it that way. I mean, that flows, that fits. Next line, and do that for hours. A script adaptation of something like One Piece probably takes 12 to 18 hours for one episode, or for one 23-minute episode. If you just start from scratch, watch it, get the feel of it, time code it, write it, review it, make notes, turn it in. So, I work at the studio all day during the day, recording people and directing. I have a little break, go home, have some dinner, walk my dog because he's awesome, and then do like 2 or 3 hours of writing a night, go to bed, repeat. And that's a lot of what I do. That's why I have these huge bags. Yes?
How much fun did you have playing Ronka in Oron?
All the fun. Oh my God, so fun. That was a lot of fun. I was the producer of that show, but I try to let my directors have like 99.99% say-so in who they want. So it's not like I went in like, hey, Caitlin, hold your audition, but that role's mine. I did not do that. I auditioned for it just like anyone else, and she said that I was her first pick. So, and as far as the performance and whatever else, it was a lot of fun. Usually the man-woman roles like that are quite, they're complete comedic relief, and there's not always a lot of heart to them. It's just, oh, and you're flitty and running around and whatever. And Ronka had, I would say it was about half and half. Like, Ronka was there to be funny, but Ronka also had some really sweet moments with Dr. Haruhi that I think tied the show a lot, a lot. It tied a lot of things about the show together. And it's one of the reasons that that particular show, I think, for that type of show is one of the best. If you have a reverse harem or a harem, whatever you want, and this type of show, it screams, this is just pointless and silly and stupid, but that show has so much heart and so much, a lot of other things, that it's a far sweeter show than what it looks like on just the package of pastel blue and pink. Yes.
Could you do a line in Ronka's voice?
Stay away from my Haruhi! Which leads me into how we'll answer all the rest of my questions, which is like this. Yes!
As an adaptive writer, when you're dealing with source material that's certainly not from the culture where you're adapting it, do you face a lot of pressure from upstairs on actually curtailing certain parts or certain pieces of that culture or things that they deem inappropriate for the audience here?
No, I don't actually. The only time anything ever comes up as far as like urging to be pushed a certain way is if they have a different plan or mindset for it than just doing a closest to source material adaptation. For things like Alchemist and, most of the stuff I work on, One Piece, whatever else, we try to make it as close as possible to the original content. With One Piece, the only other thing we have to work with is if Viz in the manga has already changed the name of something, of some attack or whatever, the decision has to be made, is it going to be called the Japanese name, or what the Viz name is, or if there's another version of the translation, is it going to be called that? That's the only thing that comes up. The larger challenge would come when they want something like Shin-Chan done, where it's like, here's this, and we can't change the animation, but have fun with the adaptation. It doesn't have to be exactly what the Japanese did, because we're going to make this, different. Or Ghost Stories that ADV did back in the day, something like that.
I love stories.
Otherwise, the only adaptation things you have to worry about as far as being urged to go one way or the other are like the difference between something like Full Metal Alchemist and like Basilisk or something, where it's the difference between this takes place in not Japan, maybe pseudo-Europe, or this takes place like in Edo period Japan. For when I'm working on something, either as an adaptive writer or a director, if it's something that is very culturally specific, I want to throw in all the honorifics, I want to leave things with a Japanese name of all the nouns as much as possible rather than translate them. So rather than sword, we'll use katana or whatever. Those would be the challenges we face. But frequently, the urging doesndoesn't come from those above us. It just comes from either the director or the producer. That would be, yeah, that's the bulk of how that happens. Yes!
So how was it like working with Vic and Gunn on Brothers?
It was fun working with Vic. I know Vic, obviously, if you guys have been to any convention with him, Vic loves that role. And so he wants to try his best at it. And that's something that all actors want to do their best. All actors love their job. I would say Vic really, really loves that character, really, really loves that job of working on that character. So watching him, give 110% over and over and over again for everything, even if it's just like is a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding to work on with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How much fun is it doing as voice of Havoc and working with people like the Colonel and all that kind of thing? I mean, because your character is very humorous, and I love Havoc. He's awesome, even though you get disabled at the end of the show.
Spoiler. It was fun working as Havoc. The voice is pretty close to my voice. It's actually, as far as the attitude and the swagger, it's, that was a word before we ruined it. It's my impression of Damian Clark's speaking voice, like if he's in a bar picking up women. That's what Havoc sounds like. Hey, how you doing? As far as how much fun it was, it's always fun to work. On that particular show, it's just such a good show. It's fun to be a part of it in any capacity. And being the director of that show, I also got to direct myself whenever it was my turn. That's always fun too. It's a challenge to lay the same sort of criteria down on yourself as it is other actors. The tendency for a director who is also an actor and they have to direct themselves acting is that they overdo it. They try so hard, like, let me do it again, I can do it better, I can do it better, without taking the mindset of, this would never happen if you were directing someone else. You'd be like, I got it, you guys did a great job on the second or third take, it was perfect. Actors tend to be obsessive and they beat themselves up quite a bit, like, I can do it better, I know I can do it better, I know I can do it better, so they end up being there all day on 2 lines. So the challenge for directing yourself is to treat yourself as if you're any other actor that you're having in the booth, same level of criteria. So that can be fun. Yes!
I love all the commentary tracks you do on the Funimation DVDs. I wonder what is the process of the commentary? It's just random day, let's do this? Or...
The process of the commentary, it depends on the type of commentary. For a typical episode, I I will schedule it in advance, like, okay, Lucy Christian's coming to town. That doesn't happen that often. So let me have Lucy and Sonny and Colleen for a One Piece commentary. And then I'll go through the set of episodes that release is going to have, like what's one that each of their line counts is pretty high, or it's a significant episode where they're all involved with it, and we'll go from there. Or I'll know in advance, like, this is the big showdown between Lucci and Luffy or something. And I want those two in the commentary, so let's start planning that way in advance. Something like that. And then when it's time to record the commentary, I set an hour aside for it. We watch the episode so we can get that initial, everyone watching it and not talking out of the way. Because if you don't do that, then people tend to talk less because they're so involved with, like, this is their first time to see the finished product. So they get caught up and like, oh, that was neat. Oh, wait, we're supposed to be talking about this rather than watching it. So I get one pass through on, we watch it first and we talk about, like, are there any specific moments you want to touch on or talk about in this, and we'll try to make sure that happens. And then record it. For movie commentaries, I think hearing the same 2 or 3 people for an hour and a half to 2 hours is boring. I think it's so boring. Because it's not like going out and shooting a movie. We can't talk about what it was like to be on location or what the food for craft services was like, or, like, oh, we had to do this over 3 months. None of that stuff happened because we're doing an ADR. We're doing just the voice work on something. So it'd be like, oh yeah, I remember when I recorded that line. It took 2 tries. Cool. That's not as interesting to talk about. So what I frequently do on my movie commentaries is I bring in as many people that are the leads and supporting roles as possible for like 5 to 15 minutes at a time to talk about their personal experience, what their thoughts are on the character, and what the recording process was like. And every time I have an actor to come in and work for me, I'm like, cool, I'll schedule you a little bit long, and then we're going to record this stuff at the end. And we'll talk about it. And it's more of an interview form rather than a watch what's on screen form. I tend to think that a lot of the talking about what happens on screen thing ends up sounding like MST 3000 or something. It's we didn't draw it, we didn't come up with the story, we didn't come up with the music, we didn't do any of those things. So it'd be like, oh, there goes Kent. Man, Kent's really good. Kent Williams is great. He does good on that role. Oh, look, there's Colleen. She's great. It's not as interesting to me. And if I was listening to it, it'd be like, no, this is boring. So that's why I recorded that way. That's the process.